Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Girirvaradari Dava Girirvaradari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Jamuna Tiravanachari Jamuna Tiravanachari Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramhamsa Paripajikacharya Ashutara Shatan Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramhamsa Paripajikacharya Ashutara Shatan Shri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopal Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mathura Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Bhagavate Devaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Bhagavate.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavatam, 2nd canto, 5th chapter, verse 14. Dravyam karma chaka cha kalas cha subhavo jiva eva cha vasudeva paro brahman na chanyor Harto sti tadvataha dravyam karma chakalascha svabhavo jiva eva cha vasudevat paro brahman na chanyarto sti tadvataha dravyam karma chakalascha svabhavo jiva eva cha Vasudevat Paro Brahman Natanyorto Stitadvataha Dravyam Karma Chakalascha Subhavo Jiva Evacha Vasudevat Paro Brahman Natanyorto Stitadvataha Translation.
Avyam karma kalascha
Dravyam karma chakalascha
bhavo jiva evacha
svabhavo jiva evacha
vasudevat paro brahman
vasudevat paro brahman
janyortosti tatvataha.
natanyortosti tadvataha.
Dravyam karma chakalascha
Dravyam karma chakalascha
Svabhavo jiva evacha
svabhavo jiva evacha
Vasudevat paro brahman
vasudevat paro brahman
Nachanyortoshti tatvataha
natanyortosti tadvataha.
Dravyam karma chakalascha
Dravyam karma chakalascha
Svabhavo jiva evacha
svabhavo jiva evacha
Vasudevat paro brahman
vasudevat paro brahman
Nachanyo artosti tattvataha
natanyortosti tadvataha.
Dravyam karma chakalascha
Dravyam karma chakalascha
Svabhavo jiva evacha
svabhavo vasudevat paro brahman
Nachanyortosti tattvataha
natanyortosti tadvataha.
Dravyam karma chakalascha
Dravyam karma chakalascha
Swabhavo jiva evacha
svabhavo jiva evacha
Vasudevat paro brahman
vasudevat paro brahman
Nachanyortosti tatvataha
natanyortosti tadvataha.
Dravyam karma chakalascha
Dravyam karma chakalascha
Svabhavo jiva evacha
svabhavo jiva evacha
Vasudevat paro brahman
vasudeva paro brahman
Nachanyo tisti tattvataha.
natanyortosti tadvataha.
Dravyam karma chakalascha
Dravyam karma chakalascha
Svabhavo jiva evacha
svabhavo jiva evacha
Vasudevat paro brahman
vasudevat paro brahman
Nachanyo artosti tattvataha.
natanyortosti tadvataha.
Dravyam karma chakalascha
Dravyam karma chakalascha
Svabhavo jiva evacha
svabhavo jiva evacha
Vasudeva paro brahman
vasudevat paro brahman
Nachanyortosti tatvataha
natanyortosti tadvataha.
Dravya karma chakalascha
Dravyam karma chakalascha
Swabhavo jiva evacha
svabhavo jiva evacha
Vasudevat paro brahman
vasudevat paro brahman
Nachanyortosti tattvataha.
natanyortosti tadvataha.
Dravyam karma chakalascha
Dravyam karma chakalascha
Swabhavo jiva evacha
svabhavo jiva evacha
Vasudevat paro brahman
vasudevat paro brahman
Nachanyortosti tatvataha.
natanyortosti tadvataha.
Dravyam karma chakalascha
Dravyam karma chakalascha
Svabhavo jiva evacha
svabhavo jiva evacha
Vasudevat paro brahman
vasudevat paro brahman
Nachanyortosti tatvataha.
natanyortosti tadvataha. Dravyam, the ingredients: earth, water, fire, air, and sky. karma, the interaction, cha, and kalaha, eternal time, cha, also, swabhavaha, intuition or nature, jivaha, the living being, eva, certainly, cha, and vasudeva, from vasudeva, padaha, differentiated parts, Brahman, O Brahmana, na, never, cha, also, anyaha, separate, artaha, value, asti, there is, tattvataha, in truth. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: the five elementary ingredients of creation, the interaction thereof set up by eternal time, and the intuition or nature of the individual living beings are all differentiated parts and parcels of the personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. And in truth, there is no other value in them. Purport: this phenomenal world is impersonally the representation of Vasudeva, because the ingredients of its creation, their interaction, and the enjoyer of the resultant action, living being, are all produced by the external and internal energies of Lord Krishna. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 7:4 through 5. The ingredients, namely earth, water, fire, and air, as well as the conception of material identity, intelligence, and the mind, are all produced of the external energy of the Lord. The living entity who enjoys the interaction of the above gross and subtle ingredients, as set up by eternal time, is an offshoot of internal potency, with freedom to remain either in the material world or in the spiritual world. In the material world, the living entity is enticed by deluding nescience. But in the spiritual world, he is in the normal condition of spiritual existence without any delusion. The living entity is known as the marginal potency of the Lord, but in all circumstances, neither the material ingredients nor the spiritual parts and parcels are independent of the personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. For all things, whether products of the external, internal, or marginal potencies of the Lord, are simply displays of the same effulgence of the Lord, just as light, heat, and smoke are displays of fire. None of them are separate from the fire. All of them combine together to be called fire. Similarly, all phenomenal manifestations, as well as the effulgence of the body of Vasudeva, are his impersonal features, whereas he eternally exists in his transcendental form, called Satchid Ananda Vigraha, distinct from all conceptions of the material ingredients mentioned above. If Maharaj would like to speak something on this, we would all be very much enlivened to hear from Maharaj. So the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Bhumir apo nalo vayu kang mano burir evacha ahankar iti yang me bina prakriti ashtada. That his external energies, as we're hearing, the Lord has three primary energies. His external energy is primarily consisting of these eight ingredients. Earth, water, fire, air, and sky, as well as the conception of the material identity, intelligence, and the mind. Chief of these ingredients is the conception of the material identity, which is ahankar, or false ego, in which the living entity perceives himself to be separate of the Lord. But because we hear Jivera Swarupa Hoy Nadira Krishna Das, Krishnara Tatasta Shakti Veda Ved Prakash, that the living entity is part and parcel of the Lord. So this ahankar, this conception that I am separate from the Lord, is actually illusory. It doesn't exist. And in this state, the living entity is enticed by deluding nescience. As Srila Prabhupada has stated in the purport here. And he's actually not in his normal condition. He's in a diseased condition, a diseased state. And in this diseased state, he's primarily trying to enjoy the external energy of the Lord. And like this, he's becoming entangled in so many different things. And this entanglement is driving the living entity further into nescience, further into ahankar. Primarily, so many other identifications are coming from this. So many isms we see in the world. As Rishi Prabhu was telling us yesterday, there's many isms, and these isms are all they're all illusory by nature, because there's feminism, veganism, so many different isms. And the living entity is identifying with these things, thinking that he's actually doing something. He's actually doing some good in the world. He's helping in some way or the other. But we see that Rishi Prabhu, he talked about feeding the whales or something, saving the whales. But what is that going to do? Because there's unlimited other problems in the world besides just the whales. Right. So that analogy that you spend your whole life watering the leaves and the leaves and the twigs of the tree, and the tree is just going to die. Right. So we spend our whole life trying to fight for this ism and that ism, then nothing actually gets done, because we're only furthering our conception of or that illusion of separate identity from the Lord, which is the source of all of our problems. Because in that state, that disease state, we're deeply dissatisfied, disconnected. And so like that, we're trying to connect to so many different things, all of these isms and these different things. And then there's alcoholism, so many different things. But they're all terrible conditions and artificial impositions on the natural consciousness of the living entity. So in this state, we should realize that this is not good. This is not my real enjoyment. And I may be so attached to them now that I'm thinking that, these things are good. They're good for me. They make me feel good. But actually, they're keeping me bound up in this cycle of birth and death in the material world, in which so much suffering takes place. I may be enjoying my alcohol, or I may be enjoying my this and my that and my whatever, but there's so many things that I actually cannot enjoy, like this body. Despite all the attempts to enjoy the body is degrading. The only reason why I have this body is because I'm trying to enjoy this little flickering happiness. And with that comes a price where I have to spend years, lifetimes, suffering birth, death, old age, disease, so many different things, the weather, living entities biting and barking and all different things, disturbing things, all because I want to enjoy some little thing. When actually, if we just take up devotional service, then we can rid ourselves of all these attachments, free ourselves of all these things, and we can enjoy the real pleasure, which comes from assisting the Lord, who is the supreme enjoyer, in his enjoyment. And we can realize our real identity, the truth. And in this knowledge is very blissful, to become free from all of these unwanted things, anarthas, unnecessary things plaguing us. And we should be very, very, very eager to take it up, because there's nothing that's actually lacking in this devotional service. There's no pleasure that we'll find elsewhere that isn't found in the service of the Lord. even if we're very much attracted to the form of our significant other or whatever, we should see that actually the Lord's form is the source of beauty. Whatever it is that I'm looking for, it's actually coming from the Lord, and it can be found there in unlimited abundance. So we can go there to the Lord, find everything that we're looking for, and be satisfied, actually. So yeah, the Lord, he is the source of the external energy as well as the marginal energy. And the living entity is the marginal energy to be either situated in the external energy of the Lord or the internal energy of the Lord. And in the external energy of the Lord, he's got to take so many different forms. It's hellish. And all of them are other than his real identity. And in the internal potency, in the internal energy of the Lord, he's situated in his natural position as the spiritual being, part and parcel of the Lord, engaging in the Lord's service. And the Lord's service is yayatma supersediti. It's supremely satisfying to the self. Because while the marginal energy, he's either situated in the external energy or the internal energy, actually his very nature is that of the internal potency of the Lord. So we can see that being in the external potency is like a fish out of water. And being situated in the internal potency is like being in one's natural environment, safe, secure, very nice, very comfortable for the living entity. Despite all external arrangements too, whatever, be it natural disasters, sufferings from other living entities, one is situated in his constitutional position as a servant to the Lord in devotional service. Within the internal potency of the Lord, he's completely free from all calamities, even though they may be taking place. His body may be affected by so many different things. But because he's situated in the internal potency of the Lord in devotional service, then he's completely free from all suffering. So this is what we're after. This is what we actually want. Yesterday we were hearing that this the illusory energy of the Lord cannot take precedence, being ashamed of her position, but those who are bewildered by her always talk nonsense, being absorbed in thoughts of it is I and it is mine. So Ahankar is characterized by putting oneself in the center. It is I. I'm at the center of my existence. Everything is for me. Everything is for my enjoyment. It is mine. We were at Zona Rosa, or Legends actually. And there's music blasting there, pop songs and things. And we were noticing that all of them are having to do with, feelings of ownership or possessiveness over another individual. And it's this perverted reflection of love for Krishna. And it's really weird. All these songs are like this, she's mine, he's mine. I'm having my way with them or whatever. And it's just hellish. Those who are bewildered by her always talk nonsense. Yeah, we can see that when we're out there preaching, we may be approaching individuals and they may, most of the time they're totally absorbed. Like the yesterday, I approached a table of guys at some restaurant and they were all drinking beer and they were watching some comedian on the phone or whatever. And I approached them and they said, hey, sorry, man, we're not the guys for you. And some nonsense was just blaring from the phone, and they were completely absorbed in it. Just some woman, her genitals or something, I don't know. But they were so engrossed in this that they don't even have a second to spare to hear about their supreme benefit, you know. So it's a very unfortunate position. But these are men with the nature of animals, animalistic nature. So just like you can't really get through to a dog, you can't really get through to these individuals. It's very conditioned, a state of nescience, simply absorbed in thoughts of I and mine and these things. But if they just hear about these topics of Krishna, then very gradually there's a change of heart. The consciousness begins to shift towards the Lord and away from the external energy. And we can do that by, they may not be eligible to hear about the Lord or even look at the Srimad Bhagavad Gita when it's presented to them, or SSR or anything. But we can give them prasad. We can engage them in other ways. We can do kirtan and dance. And there's so many ways to engage and entertain living entities in Krishna consciousness. I'm just being friendly and approaching them and asking them, trying to start a conversation, and then finding a way to dovetail it into Krishna consciousness and make them question, you know, why are you doing the things that you're doing? Why are we doing these things? If we can question these things, then that's great. That's the start. And by asking these questions, then gradually we can begin to inquire about the real question. Who am I? Who is God? These things. But first off, why am I drinking? Why am I smoking? Why am I doing all these things? I really need these things. And gradually, then you can ask the higher questions. Inquire about God. And like that, then the living entity can attain perfection. But currently, the living entities are all occupied with so many other questions. The questions that the animals are asking. When am I going to eat? When am I going to have sex? When am I going to do this and that? And you know, why is this happening? Why is that? All these things. But those questions, they actually become answered, and we can move on and ask deeper questions when we hear a little bit transcendental knowledge, get a little bit knowledge, and like that gradually makes some progression. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, Jagannath Prabhu.
So you were saying, I like this point about asking the big questions, like why do we do the things that we do? And this is my question. So like, why is it that we are so prone and so attracted to things that are not good for us?
Yeah, it's a nice question. Because in reality, these things are very abominable and disgusting. You know, we're attracted to some body and it's just full of mucus and bile and stool, you know. It's gross. But I mean, this consciousness is the remnants of our past lives, you know. In other words, we've worked for this. I've worked to have that. You know, just like in Krishna consciousness, we're working for a higher taste, and it's hard work. Similarly, at one point, we also had to work to acquire a taste for all these abominable things. You know, so that's our karma. And it's such a waste of time and a waste of life. And I'm working so hard to enjoy something so hellish, you know. Yeah, it's terrible. Yes, Prabhu.
Can you expand more on the eligibility to hear, the qualifications to hear? Something like the Bhagavad Gita, for example, we go out quite a bit now to distribute the Bhagavad Gitas. And there's a lot of people who are, I'm not sure about their qualification. Can you expand on that?
Yes, Prabhu. Krishna, in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Tadvidi pranipatena paripashnena sevada upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tatpadarshanaha. That, I mean, the qualification basically is the mood of the receiver. He's got to be submissive and humble. So that's the qualification to hear these things. One has to be submissive. He's got to be willing to receive it, you know. But although that is the natural state of the living entity, is humility. Because we're servants. We're servants of the Lord. So that means humility. That this humility has been covered over by so many other things that most people, they just won't be able to hear, you know. And I mean, what to speak of myself, I can hardly even hear during Bhagavatam class. So it really requires a lot of, you know, endeavor on the part, but also it's very nice because in Krishna, in this movement, we have so many other things that are very, like kirtan is very nice to hear. Plug into kirtan. And anybody, even if they're not so inclined to hear philosophy, they come to a kirtan and you can feel it, you know. Everybody feels the energy. They want to get up and dance. And so, I mean, this is the power, is that the world now is full of so many fallen souls, you know, but Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given such a nice thing that regardless of the qualification, we can all take part in it. Prasadam, we all have to eat. Singing and dancing, we all like to do those things. Everybody's going out on the weekends and they're singing and dancing. So naturally, people are very good at these things. Actually, people are also hearing things too all the time, hearing nonsense. Like Rishi Prabhu was saying yesterday. It's about a meter of hearing, right? If we just fill that, all of our hearing with Krishna consciousness, Krishna Katha, then very easy, very nice. But we're filling it with nonsense. So many nonsense talks and things like that. And actually, even when we do approach people, a lot of people are very naturally attracted to this philosophy, you know. If you just say it how it is. Like, this is the foremost scientific process for God consciousness. People are like, whoa, that's very nice. Let me hear about it, you know. And they hear about it for as long as they can hear about it. But then it's time to move on. So the expert preacher, he's dosing everybody with as much as they can handle, you know. So you say one thing, people are attracted, but then you may go on and they lose attention, which is naturally how it is. You know, we do this all the time. So yeah, Krishna will give us the intelligence on how to actually expertly dose everybody we meet according to where they're at, just by you know, what we can see there, where we can see they're at, what they're talking about, maybe the kinds of questions that they're asking us, you know, what they're interested in, and then you know where they're at, and how they approach you, and so you can give them according to that. But yeah, Krishna consciousness as it is so attractive that whoever it is, they will be attracted by one aspect of it or another. I hope that was okay, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu.
When I heard this verse, can I share some comment, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu.
When I heard this verse, it had me in mind that, well, two things. We studied today Bhagavad Gita chapter 9, text 4, and it says that all beings are in me, but I'm not in them. Where he says, this entire universe is pervaded by my unmanifested form. So I was connecting that with this, that all these things are from Krishna and there's no other value in them besides that they're from Krishna. And then I also had a thought that Bhaktivinoda Thakur says there's nothing in the whole universe except for the holy name. So then those were just some thoughts that came to my brain that I wanted to throw out.
Thank you so much for sharing those. Yeah. The Lord, oftentimes people say that the Lord, what makes the Lord distinct is that he's supremely indistinct. You know, he's formless. Like I was hearing this Mayavad at Reconnection. This is what he was saying. Shiva actually, he's thinking that Shiva is the Lord, but he's like, Shiva actually is formless, means formlessness, you know, or something like this, whatever. But the Lord is supremely distinct from everything else. He's the supremely distinct. He's there's nothing else like him because everything is coming from him. It's not that everything is coming from me or everything is coming from some void, but everything is coming from the Lord because the Lord is unlimitedly full of this distinction, this energy. And he's got distinct energies too. It's not just that it's he's got his external, internal potency, all of these things. Maya is there. This is what Srila Vyasadeva saw. He didn't see some blinding effulgent light. He actually saw the Lord and he saw how everything was coming from the Lord. There's the Jiva soul and there's the illusory potency. But somehow or other, the Lord is non-dual and absolute. He's absolute. But these things are inconceivably also separate from him. So, yeah. Just like among the celestial bodies, the sun is supremely distinct because it's actually illuminating all the other planets, all the other things. So Krishna is the same way. Everything is coming from him. Life is coming from him. He's the substantial reality. So, okay. I think that's all the time we have. Thank you, devotees. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.